Okay, I am going to trim a bowl. All right, so when you're drying your clay, your thrown piece, it takes time. I've been asked numerous times, like, how long does clay take to dry? Like every term that I teach. And time is a factor, but also the humidity in the air, if it's a rainy day, the season, has it been sitting on a plastic surface or a wooden surface? There are a lot of variables. Even the thickness of the material is going to affect drying. So what I tend to do is leave the clay out in the open air for a few hours, check on it to see what I need to do. If I need to leave for the day, I cover it well with plastic until the next time. But just remember, if you have it sitting on like a wooden surface or like a masonite bat, the clay is going to continue to dry because it's sitting on an absorbent surface. So once this outside area surface is no longer sticky to the touch, then what I do is I free it from the bat and I flip it over. And usually this area is still sticky. Okay, so you want to flip it over and let this area stiffen. Usually like an hour or so is all that it needs. So again, once the outside is all the way to the bottom is no longer sticky, then I flip it over to get this to catch up. So once no area is sticky to the touch, has just gotten to the point where no area is sticky to the touch, it's at a pretty good leather hard stage and it's ready to be trimmed. All right. What's nice about a bowl, an open form like this, is I can get one hand on the inside, one on the outside, and I'm just taking note of how much space is between my two hands. So like that, all right? And I have about ½ an inch, so I could trim about ¼ inch thickness away here in the center, and that's the thinnest part of the pot. So I'm kind of mapping out the work that I need to do. And then I feel along here, and the thickness is pretty good all the way down to here, so I'll just make a fingernail mark. Those are just things that help me. It's up to you if you want to use those little guides. Something else to consider is look at the type of rim that you have. Maybe you want some resemblance of the rim echoed in the foot. You want to consider how wide you want the foot to be. If it's like a cat food or dog food dish, you'd want the base to be wider so it's not so easily toppled. If it's just a decorative bowl and you want it to look very, very delicate, a very narrow foot would be fine, and the bowl would probably just remain on a shelf for people to admire. Okay, so those are considerations. Okay, first of all, you want to center the bowl. This area is probably distorted from the wire that I used to cut the pot free from the bat once it was thrown. So you want to center the area that you'll be trimming, but don't base it on this edge, okay? And there are a few ways you can go about it. There's this way where the wheel is going at a slow rate. By the time I feel the clay hitting my finger on this side, just in one spot, I react by hitting this side. So the clay that hit my finger on this side is going to be over here by the time I react. So that's how you can get the bowl centered. Okay, another way about it is to just gradually bring your finger closer and closer. Okay, the clay is skipping just on one side. Stop the wheel, take note of where that spot is or has moved to, and then move the clay away from that spot. It's hitting there, there. Okay, so I'll move it this way. All right, so it gets closer and closer. And then a trick that I've seen students do is they'll use the needle tool to scribe a line so you can see exactly where the clay is hit. I don't recommend doing this right away at the beginning of centering a particular bowl, because you might have a bunch of scratch marks and you don't know which was the last one. So for fine-tuning the centering, you could do that at the very end. Okay, so let's see, the mark is here. Okay, so I'll move it this way just a tiny bit, and then it should be perfect. All right, there you go. Okay, and then you want to put wads of clay. I always work on opposing sides so that the clay, the bowl doesn't shift. All right, and now I just check to make sure that it hasn't shifted on me. I could adjust it a little bit more. There. Okay, that's really good. So when I trim, I like to keep my elbows against my thighs and hold the tool with two hands, or my hands joined some fashion. You want to really hold on to the tool because the clay is going to grab it. All right, and I like to work on finishing the shape of the outside. I did take note of the contour of the interior, and I want to trim this so that the exterior reflects that same kind of curve as the interior. If you do that, then the thickness will end up being pretty consistent throughout the piece. Let's see, my fingernail mark is right there, so I will follow that. So now I can see where that mark is, so as my guide. If you get these long trimmings that come off your pot and they don't stick to the pot, then it's a pretty good leather hard state. If instead of getting long pieces like this, you get little crumbly bits that break off as you trim, that's a sign the clay is too dry. Or instead of little bits, you just get like dust that's coming off and the clay is way too dry. And then on the other end of it, if these long ribbons, trimmings get stuck to the stick pretty badly to the pot, then it's a sign the clay is too wet. So where I made that mark, I know that's as far down as I really need to go for getting rid of thickness. I want the shape of the bowl to flow, so I don't, on this bowl, I don't want to break in the profile from the where I'm not trimming to where I am trimming. So these aren't sticking, it's just that they're just getting wrapped around the bowl. Okay. And then we'll get rid of those little ridges. As a habit, I use the smaller trimming tool first because it puts less, I had to put less pressure on the surface in order to trim clay away. And then to get rid of those ridges, I use the a bigger tool with a broader surface. Okay, so now I can start on the inside. So I can trim 1/4 of an inch there, and I'll be able to go deeper out here. right? And I don't like sharp corners because they can get chipped easily during use or when you're washing dishes. I use a little bit of water, and then it's creating a little bit of slip, and then I just rub my fingers on it, and that just smooths out any roughness that you might have, so you have a nice refined surface. Okay, and I'll just use a straight edge. It doesn't have to be a ruler, it can be anything with a nice straight side to it, and it will, the space I see underneath the ruler is showing me that there's enough space for glaze clearance, so we are fine. So I'll be able to glaze this entire piece except this surface right here. And this is the exciting part, is getting to turn the bowl over to see what it looks like now. Because the shape of the outside wasn't complete when it was thrown. It's not complete until after it's been trimmed. So that is the profile of the bowl. Okay, and then that's the foot. Okay.